Some breaking news developing. 3 prison officers were assaulted by Hashim Abdi, the brother of the Manchester Arena bomber, according to a BBC source. The attack at HMP Frankland in County Durham on Saturday left the officers with severe injuries, including burns, scalds and stab wounds, the Prison Officers Association has reported. GB News Home and Security Editor Mark White joins us to tell us more now. Mark, this is a very much breaking story. Can you tell us what has been going on here?
Evening, Alex. Evening, everybody. Yes, an absolutely horrific attack that unfolded this morning at HMP Frankland in County Durham, that Category A prison that's housing the most serious of offenders, including many terrorist offenders. This attack, according to the Prison Officers Association, the Prison Officers Union, was carried out by Hashim Abedi, the brother of Salman Abedi, the Manchester Arena bomber. Of course, Hashim Abedi also serving a life sentence for his part in the Manchester Arena bombings, for helping plan and assist Salman Abedi in that horrific endeavour. Well, today we are told from the Prison Officers Association that in the kitchen area of a separation unit, that's where terrorist prisoners in particular are kept in an area away from the general prison population. It has, of course, with it very significant risks. In the prison kitchen of that separation area, Hashim Abedi, according to the Prison Officers Association, grabbed a pan of boiling hot oil, threw it over a group of 3 prison officers, and then began assaulting and stabbing those officers with what were described as homemade weapons. Now, all 3 of the officers, we're told, have been seriously injured. We're told from the North East Ambulance Service, we've been speaking to my colleague Charlie Peters, that the air ambulance was sent initially with a doctor. A doctor from that air ambulance helped treat one of the most seriously injured prison officers. Then they were transferred by road to hospital. Another doctor, a medic, has also accompanied an ambulance, a land ambulance, taking a second prison officer to hospital, and the 3rd prison officer has also been taken by land ambulance to hospital. We have no further update on the severity of the injuries, but the Prison Officers Association saying that the injuries are serious. I should say we just had a statement from the Justice Secretary, Shabana Mahmood. She says, "I'm appalled by the attack of 3 brave officers, or on 3 brave officers at HMP Frankland today. My thoughts are with them and their families." The police are now investigating, she says. I will be pushing for the strongest possible punishment. Violence against our staff will never be tolerated. And Alex, I've also got a very strong worded statement from the chairman of the Prison Officers Association, Mark Fairhurst. He has said, "First and foremost, my thoughts are with the injured staff, their families and colleagues. No officer should be subject to cowardly and vicious attacks at work. The POA will support our members as much as we need during this traumatic time. This attack displays the dangers," he says, of brave prison officers, what they face on a daily basis. Separation centres, he goes on to say, hold the most dangerous terrorist offenders who simply do not wish to alter their ideology, and as this event confirms, are determined to inflict violence on those who hold them securely. He goes on to say, "We must now review the freedoms we allow separation centre prisoners. I am of the opinion that allowing access to cooking facilities and items that can threaten the lives of staff should be removed immediately. These prisoners need only receive their basic entitlements, and we should concentrate on control and containment instead of attempting to appease them. Things have to change," according to the chair of the Prison Officers Association, Alex. So clearly very angry at the fact that 3 prison officers have been attacked and seriously injured by the brother, it seems, of the Manchester Arena bomber Salman Abedi, his brother Hashim Abedi, serving a life sentence for his part in those horrific events back in Manchester in 2017.
Yeah, Mark, I mean, many questions will be asked now as to how on earth this has happened. Of course, there's already difficulties recruiting new prison officers in the system. Do you think the government will be urgently reviewing the freedoms prisoners have in these high security prisons at this point in time?
Well, they will certainly review it, but I mean, there are so many reviews because there are so many serious incidents that happen within the prison estate. And the fact is, wherever you are in the prison estate, even some of the category B and C prisons can be pretty dangerous environments. But a category A maximum security prison is, of course, potentially very dangerous. It needs to have highly trained staff and plenty of them. We know that the prison service has gone through a crisis in terms of the number of prison officers. Both the previous government and this government involved in trying to increase the numbers of prison officers. But you've got a particular issue, I think, with terrorist prisoners, and by that I mean Islamist prisoners. It's not necessarily an issue that we see with anybody who has been convicted of far-right ideology, but within the Islamist prison sector in a number of prisons, there are Islamist gangs. And in fact, there was reporting just a week ago on Frankland Prison expressing some real concerns that were being expressed by prison officers, staff at that prison, about the way in which these Islamist gangs seem to operate with impunity in parts of the prison, particularly in the separation centre where they are concentrated. It's one of the flaws. We can see why you have a separation centre to try and keep them away from the main population. But the flaw in that particular method of operation is you're putting dozens of very dangerous individuals with often, a twisted ideology and a determination to cause authority as much harm as possible. You're putting them together in very concentrated numbers, and as such, of course, it can be extremely dangerous for those that have the onerous task of having to guard these individuals.
Thank you so much for joining us. As Mark White, GB News Home and Security Editor. He's going to be joining us every hour to give us more updates on that. But we're also now joined by former inmate at HMP Wandsworth, David Shipley. David, thank you very much for coming on to the Saturday 5 this evening. This is quite a serious story. From your experience, have you seen anything like this happen during your time serving there?
No, so I wasn't at Frankland. I only ever served time in a B category and below jails, and I never saw anything like this. This is an awful, awful attack, and I think it demonstrates that with these kinds of prisoners, we aren't doing enough to keep staff safe.
Yes, and did you feel that security was an issue during your time at HMP Wandsworth at all, David?
Yeah, I think, as I've often said before, Wandsworth is at the time was an astonishingly unsecure and chaotic jail, and that's why you saw Daniel Khalif escape. That's why you saw an escape in 2019. It was a disaster waiting to happen.
Our home and security editor there, Mark White, was informing us about that story that broke just a week ago about the spread of extreme Islamism within prisons and the separation units perhaps even overflowing, according to some reports. Is there a worrying concern that there's radicalisation happening, that these gangs are sort of operating within the prison system now? And if so, David, would you have any experience of that during your time?
It absolutely is a concern. So if you look at the reporting last week said that at Frankland, essentially Islamists were in control of large parts of the jail. And I actually wrote a follow-up piece on that for The Spectator. And when I spoke to the Ministry of Justice, they said, there's nothing to see here. These rumours are completely untrue. And I just don't think they have a clue what's going on inside jails like Frankland. And with this one, we looked at the fact that these guys are being held in separation units, but they've got cooking facilities. And this is the key thing the Prison Officers Association are warning about. And I think really we need to look at something more like a US Supermax model, where prisoners are held in individual cells, they're fed in their cells, and their behaviour is much more tightly controlled, so nothing like this ever happens again.
I've got Emma Trimble here who'd like to ask a question to you, if you don't mind.
Yeah, David, it's been quite some time now since Ian Akerson did his prison review, which raised a lot of concerns about extremist Islamist radicalisation in prisons. And actually, it seems to have only gotten worse since then. I think many people will be looking at this story and thinking it's absurd that these extremist prisoners had access to boiling water or any other kind of thing that they could use as a weapon. Was that something that you experienced? Did you see any signs of Islamists being able to access things that really common sense would suggest they shouldn't be able to?
No, I mean, I wasn't held with any Islamist terrorists. They tend to get held at jails like Belmarsh and Frankland. But I know from friends of mine who were at Belmarsh that there are similar issues there. And I think we just don't realise that we have to treat these prisoners quite differently. A jihadist prisoner who's trying to kill or has successfully killed many people is not like even a run-of-the-mill murderer. These are very, very dangerous people, and we clearly cannot hold them in this way because it means horrible attacks like this happen.
Will?
Yeah, David, this prisoner obviously knows that he's going to be in jail for the rest of his life. He'll never get out. I'm thinking, like, what are the disincentives to stop this sort of behaviour? What are the sorts of punishments that you can give in jail that makes it less likely that these sorts of prisoners will attack officers in this way?
There's really not very much, and this is one of the issues. We don't have a lot of stick available in the prison system. He could be held in segregation, where he won't get to interact with other prisoners. He could be put on basics, he'll have fewer privileges. But yeah, fundamentally, I think the issue here is we don't have a means of holding these guys in a way that is safe for the people who work with them.
OK, that's a former inmate at HMP Wandsworth, David Shipley. Thank you for joining us.